Yeah. You already know. Clapper. Young millionaires. The general. Okay, I wake up every day, I'm feeling good, I'm feeling great. Every day I'm getting paid, man, this life is going great. I just wanna celebrate, I made it in and out of state. $1 million in the case, I got it hidden somewhere safe. I multiply all my millions and really I am extremely wealthy. I distributed my millions with my family. This is just the beginning, I purchased a Lamborghini. Driving around the city, believe me, you haven't seen me. Made it through all the struggle, defeated all of my rivals. I was never entitled, I had to fight for survival. Man, this life is amazing, it's crazy the way we made it. Now I'm living my dreams and I'm burning, just getting started. I made it through the struggle back when I was very worried. Now I'm chilling, get my condo, Lamborghinis and Bugatti. I know you in a hurry, but I promise don't be worried. When you see me in the club, I probably got enough to party. I'm a multi-millionaire, getting money everywhere. I ain't tripping on nobody, I just came to celebrate. Yeah, we got the party popping, got the general over here, throwing money in the air, cause we get it every day. I multiply all my millions, now me and my people winning. Moving city to city, I promise that you will see me driving a Lamborghini, but this is just the beginning. $1 million Bugatti, I'm stacking money in the ceiling. Multiply all my millions, now me and my people winning. Moving city to city, I promise that you will see me driving a Lamborghini, but this is just the beginning. $1 million Bugatti, I'm stacking money in the ceiling.
The Truth Podcast, live from the grill. We got myself, we got Big John here. We're missing the Winston and Nikki G, but we're gonna hold this strong. What's up, John?
Hey, how are you doing? God, I was just lamenting now that I was typing in the date on this and saying it's almost June. It's, man, going from being locked in for months and everything slowing down to a standstill. Now time seems to be flying by, so it becomes insane.
It is. It's crazy. It's crazy. I'm really excited about today's topic, John. I think this is going to hit a lot of home for you, kind of stuff that we talk about. But it's, over the course of the last 3 weeks, I get to interact with a lot of people, and I get to see like a lot of troubles that they're going through and just what their life brings to them, right? And so I started to think about this, and I really predefined this to one thing, is what type of ecosystem are you building? And then you also have to interact with other people's ecosystems. And then how do you maintain that independence while building your ecosystem from others, right? And so I want to really kind of touch deep. And so I was thinking about kind of like my life, right? My brother was pretty tough on my mother and my father growing up and stuff. And he put him through a lot of crap. But one of the things I was wondering is, how do you maintain that mental sanity, right, in your own and grow your ecosystem? And that if you don't have mental sanity in your current life, you're not building towards anything, and you're definitely not maintaining what you got. So something's gonna give, right? You put a lot of this bullshit in your head, and that stress is so major in your life, and we go through so much stress just on the basis of someone else's ecosystem. And is it really gonna affect us? Is it really going to affect the bottom dollar, right? I call it the bottom dollar. but the bottom piece of life. And I think that I'm sure a lot of us out there are listening. We have either family members or we have friends or we got people that are literally in our lives and they're literally trying to suck from our ecosystem. They're not, maintaining in their ecosystem that they're actually going to take from your ecosystem. And the analogy I like to give is, imagine if you had a bunch of fruit trees and you have all this land around you and they never planted anything. They have nothing to offer, but they're always coming over your land to pick the fruit, but not helping you water, not helping you prune the trees. How crazy is that? And how many people are really going through that today?
Yeah, they're just, they have people in their lives that are just takers and they don't ever give back to that relationship, so.
And the bonds that people create, sometimes I always wonder, is the stuff that people going through, are they codependent on the dramaticness too? Have they actually become like part of it? Like without that type of drama, do they even feel like they're like alive? And I think that's a pretty crazy thing for me is you see people in either bad relationships or bad business relationships or family members and like that family member is not bringing you any value. How can you not cut them off? But you have these preconceived notions that are actually making you stay there because you're afraid for their well-being, but they don't really give a shit about your well-being.
Yeah.
So why would you care about theirs? You know what I mean? And so it's like in any relationship, you got to be putting in 100, right?
Yeah.
So you know what I'm trying to say, John?
No, absolutely. No, I completely agree with that. I've personally run into these situations, where, if, say like if somebody tells me, okay, hey, my kid's doing this, has a gymnastics meet or something like that, and I'm going to make every effort I can to get there, or I'm going to let them know why I can't be there, So I've had situations like that, but then I've also sent out, like, say, invitations for my son's things, things that I'm proud of, and there are no shows, no call, no whatever, and it just makes me reevaluate their friendship and their effort that they're putting into a relationship.
It's funny, John, when I was growing up, my mom, she used to say, I went to this person's graduation. She had a book, right? And she would lay it down. And then
checklist.
Yeah. And if those people didn't come, yeah, it was a done deal. Yeah. But you know what, in life, people look at that and that's exactly what life's about. You have to reciprocate to the other person. Mm-hmm. Like exactly what you said, right? If you're out there and you're in the gym, the meets, and you're there and you're supporting, and there's no support to you, well, then you got to kick back and say, you know what? Okay, I'm going out of my way. You ain't putting any effort towards me whatsoever.
Oh yeah, no, and that's how I have like really good friends in Phoenix. Like, and then there were several years that we travel to Phoenix, play basketball tournaments there, and my friends would drive. And Phoenix is big. At 45 minutes to an hour. To go and watch them play on a Sunday or something like that. But then I have family here that I call quote family. And it doesn't take anywhere in Albuquerque to get 15 minutes, and they can't even make an effort for any of those things.
Yeah.
So what I do is I end up cutting those people out of my life, and I value the people that do put effort into me and put effort into my children. And those are the ones that I truly call friends.
Well, I think especially for you, like you said, John, like your value and what you put into, I call your stock as being your kids. So anybody around that's interacting with you on a daily basis knows that that's kind of like, I tell people, have you ever taken that test called the love languages?
Yeah, actually, I saved one of those memes because I think it's very true about personal relationships whether it comes to friendships or even your romantic relationships. You have to have those languages.
So mine's act of service, right? Pretty much what we're talking about.
Yeah.
Show me. What I mean? An act of service. It ain't just like, so I think there's words of affirmation, gifts, and I can't remember what the fourth one is. Mm-hmm. But when you really look at that, right, when someone's not putting an effort towards you and you're the one doing all the effort, that's one thing. But imagine this. Imagine you're the one that does all the effort, and then the individual that's in your life is putting nothing but resistance. Mm-hmm. So not even like taking, just fucking with you.
Oh, I know.
So think about that, right?
Mm-hmm.
So now your plant has so much water.
They're your frenemies.
Yes, but they're actually pouring more water so that the roots rot.
Yeah.
Or just have you ever been around someone who's just contradicting?
Oh yeah, no, they're definitely Debbie Downers and negative Nancy's. People that are just unhappy, and then they project their own emotions upon the situation, and and it just becomes an anchor that weighs on everybody,
And it comes down like it's all about them, or you know what, they're the one causing the shit. You shut them down, all of a sudden it's like, well, you were mean to me.
Yeah.
Like, are you fucking kidding me? That makes no sense, right?
Oh, yeah.
That makes no sense whatsoever.
Or the disingenuous conversations I hate are when you're talking about a scenario and they just wait for their turn to talk and, well, now listen to me, versus, oh, I hear what you're saying. Okay, this is what I think about what you're saying. Maybe this is how I would have handled it different. Being engaged in the conversation rather than just waiting for each other to talk and say what you want to say, rather than truly listening and participating. It's just almost like two ships that are just passing each other, that they're not making a connection.
Yeah, it's kind of back and forth.
Oh, yeah.
It's just a circling back and forth, right?
Oh, it's disingenuous. To me, disingenuous conversation, then that's not even a conversation. All it is almost like two people yelling outside,
I think one of the things that you realize, as time goes by, and we've talked about this in a lot of past podcasts, is like who's really depositing in your life. It's funny. Today I was looking at my Bitcoin app, right? And I kind of go through and say, when did I buy at this high or this low, or things are dropping. What's the trends and stuff? And we do that with money and we do that with stocks, but do we really sit back and do that with people? And say, is this stock really a yielding stock?
Yeah.
Do they bring positive? Down to family. I got a lot of family that likes a lot of drama. And one day I told myself, like, you know what? I can't have these people in my life because you know what? I didn't choose to have them in my life. But every time it's always something huge. It's always something dramatic. They call it the melodramatic. I'm like, it's just too much, right?
They're decreasing the value of your portfolio.
Yeah.
They really
the portfolio is just,
Yeah.
It's like I can't even enjoy the portfolio, right?
Yeah.
So I just tend to be like, you know what, bullshit. I'm
Yeah.
not going to have those people in my life.
No, I know.
And I think that I've made those calls, but what I used to do, and this is something I think as you start to get older, I used to have that opposition back. I call it the back and forth, doing tetherball, and like correcting them, and then here's the facts. And what I'm starting to do now is I'm just hitting you with the silent, right? The radio silence. I'm not even responding. Like, you know what? Well, for
Yeah.
better two fools than one. I've talked about this in plenty of podcasts. It's hard to do, but you're sitting there saying, I'm getting riled up. This person's already likes the controversy. So the controversy they're bringing out is making them happy. They actually feel that we're bonded now through this weird stuff. And it's not right. It's just not a healthy situation. And I think that it's sad because sometimes you can have either just one person in your life just sucking all your energy, and you really can't sit back and enjoy the rest of the flowers. You can't even enjoy what's in front of you because you're so focused on that individual. They're so toxic. It's like there's an old saying that says you can take one drop of oil and drop it in a gallon of water and contaminate it. You can take one drop of oil and 5 gallons of water and contaminate it. I don't know how many gallons you need of water to actually decontaminate the water and overall the volume, right? Think about that.
Oh, yeah.
Right? Millions of good things.
And that ties into even just the topic of the show is that ecosystem, how delicate that an ecosystem is, and how quickly you can unbalance it by having toxic things in it,
Easy,
Yeah.
right? And a lot of people, this would be a pain. There's levels, right? Could you imagine you're having a hard time at work and then you got to go home to a psychopath?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Yeah, I know.
Or
I know it has to just weigh on you and wear you out emotionally. That's you have to find a balance, a way of speaking to each other, finding partnerships to where, okay, this is maybe might be my role. This might be your role. How do we help each other out? But if it's just a toxic that just wears you out, it destroys your ecosystem.
yeah,
It's that poison, that when you travel to Hawaii, they don't let you bring stuff. They don't let you bring fruits. They don't let you bring, they make sure you can't come in with an animal. Why? Because they have a beautiful ecosystem that they don't want toxic shit in there that'll mess it up.
I like that analogy. You got to be like Hawaii. You know what I'm trying to say? You can't let nothing in. And you're right, even down to a fucking insect, right?
Yeah.
that ecosystem you can throw an imbalance. We talked about the people letting the pet python out in the Everglades, out in Florida, and how now they're the most dominant predator out there, eating the crocs and shit, right?
Mm-hmm.
How do you not know that you may think there's just a small snake, but that snake's going to grow so big and it's actually going to eat you up, right?
Yeah.
Well, that's the crazy part, and you just don't know. I was talking to a bunch of my friends, just in the stocks and stuff, and a lot of them got into some major divorces. And the first question I asked, didn't you have an inkling that they were like kind of like this was a bad choice? Every single one tells me, no, it was about 8%. Actually walk away on wedding day, but we had already paid for the catering. And I'm trying to tell you, you're getting that thought. I mean, you got to pull the zip cord at that point.
And now half his shit is gone, and you probably like to pay the caterer 10 times over.
Or worse, you have a kid involved.
Oh, yeah.
And now you're fighting for that well-being. And how many people out there have had kids with the wrong people, and now you're dealing with this crazy shit, and now you're gonna have to deal with them for 18 years, and you're trying to make all the right decisions for your son or your daughter, and you're making all these concessions, and now it's not about you anymore. That's the scary part.
Yeah.
Right? Now your ecosystem's completely fucked. Now it's a commingled ecosystem, because at this point you're worried about building your child's ecosystem.
Yeah.
And that's the tough part. That's the crazy part that I'm sitting there, I'm thinking, you know what? Is it really going out there? In my mind is you shouldn't be making those type of decisions till you're at least close to 30 years old. That's just my opinion as a man.
Oh, and I have sons, and that's usually my magic number that I always tell them. Wait. Don't rush your life to put yourself in that scenario where you want to get married, want to have a child. There's no reason to rush. You can buy boobs, you can buy ass, you can buy new hair plugs, but you can't buy youth.
That's a true statement.
You can't buy that back. You can't buy being 20 years old and being able to travel or make mistakes, but then hopefully that they don't have long-term consequences, but learn from those things and grow as a person. I waited till I was 26 to have kids, and I still lament and think, gosh, if I'd have waited 3 or 4 more years, maybe I'd have tried, because I've never traveled to Europe. There's things that I regret. I mean, I'll do those things later in life, but still doing it when you're 50 and versus doing it when you're 20, there's a big difference, right? There's a big difference. And
at 20, you don't give a shit. You're not the guy.
Well, I don't give a shit now.
You don't give a shit.
I don't give a shit now. And my friends tell you, I'm still crazy, but I just don't have a 20-year-old body anymore. You're
gonna take a few more Alka-Seltzers and a few more pain meds on that one. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah.
It's but think about that right there. And this is why it's so important to really say, I need independence in my ecosystem so that I can feel good about myself, regardless of what your style is. How many times do people get into friendship or relationships? And this is a perfect example, right? Like, most guys make me laugh. They see a hot chick and she's walking in the park and she's got fucking 6 dogs. What makes you think that you're going to go in there and say, well, I don't like dogs? Like, that doesn't make any sense, right?
Yeah.
They like the girl but don't like the dogs. Or vice versa, right? There's a guy and he's killing it and he's got 3 kids. And it's like, oh, I don't like kids. And I've heard this. And I'm sitting there like thinking, are you fucking smoking? You don't like kids, but the guy's got 3 kids. What do you think he's going to do? Put them on the shelf? Or be like, oh, you know what? You come first? That doesn't make any sense.
Or the concept that they're going to change them. They come in the beginning. Oh, well, you know what? Here's all these red flags, but I'm going to change them. And it doesn't very rarely happen.
No, because people are going to change when they want to change.
Yeah.
I mean, there's situations where someone come in and say, you know what, I want to change something about myself. And then you happen to be there at the right place and you help them and you can see that growth. It's like weight training, right? You're putting in those tips and they're doing it. But ultimately, when someone doesn't want to change, you're not going to change them. You're not going to change them. They're just going to toxify your ecosystem. And I think the big thing where people don't really understand when you're young, this is why I put this podcast originally together, is really focusing on the independence. And I talk about mind, right? Body, and your financial freedom, right? Think about this. How many decisions do people make to say, you know what? I'm going to get with this person so we can basically make the mortgage. It's fucking nuts.
Mm-hmm.
Now you're enslaved to this mortgage in this house.
Yeah.
And you're making a decision. You could totally hate this person. You're like, these are the worst years of my life. Then you realize that the house really doesn't matter to you. And then you're say you're 30, 40 years old. And you're starting from scratch.
Yeah.
Those are the things I talk about.
Yeah, and you make those decisions for the wrong reasons rather than finding somebody that you can be partners with and have intimacy with and then be friends with, rather than just one little factor that you say, well, we're going to do it for this reason.
Oh yeah. Or people say like, you know what? I'm with this person. The sex is great. And everything else in the world just sucks. Toxic as shit. Right.
Yeah.
So you got to you really have to understand your ecosystem and what makes you tick and what you like. If you don't have that figured out for yourself, you're not gonna know what to guard, right? If the most valuable thing on your garden is the peaches, because you sell peach cobbler all year, we got to guard the peaches, right?
Yeah.
The strawberries are seasonal, so no one, you know what I'm trying to tell you. And I think most people don't understand that. And then what happens is you get robbed of that, which you call youth. You get robbed of the peach tree, and then you're fucking pissed off, and then you really can't flourish because you feel like all your nutrients have been taken from the ground. And that's what's sad. And I see it a lot with parents. I see it a lot of that with, spouses. As a kid, you really can't, from your friends, but if you're in a toxic place, you just got to hold up. Like I get a lot of people asking me, well, what do you do here? And I'm saying, no, ultimately, study your ass in school. If you got toxic parents, there's pretty much nothing you can do but hold the line, right? Kind of out of sight, out of mind.
Well, they can defeat the odds of that their parents put them in this huge hole, and some can climb out. That 1%, 2% that defy those odds. That can happen, but unfortunately, the other 98 whatever percent, they struggle with breaking that cycle.
Well, what do you think, John? Would you do if you're a kid like that and you got alcoholic parents? What would be the game plan if there's no grandma and grandma's involved?
Well, the best thing that they can do, hopefully, number one, they have to identify the problem. And that means, and here's a tough task for a child, and them even having an identification or problem. Hopefully they have a great mentor in their life, whether it be a teacher, a coach, somebody, in the community center, something like that recognizes that this kid has a problem. Like that's a program that I work in right now. And we try to evaluate these kids, so we have them fill out questionnaires. Like I even do this, give them a simple piece of paper that has single digit multiplication. And the kids that struggle with that, I'm like, wow, this is a huge red flag that they're probably never going to pass Algebra 1. Right. That means they're not going to graduate. Okay, what's that going to do to their self-esteem? So even just having those basic math skills, or like we've seen kids that come in, and they come to school with filthy clothes, or they come to school, with bruises, or, all these social and emotional traumas that we don't know the truths about. You hope with these kids that they find that one adult in their life that tries to help them if their parents aren't helping them out. I'll show you this. And this maybe is something we should incorporate in the show. Like I'll find something to post because I think it's a little bit controversial, and I love it because then I get a lot of discussion topics from it. Watch, I'll show you this one, and I actually had it ready, and it kind of talks with about what I just said. So yeah, okay. So let's see if it pulls that up. Okay, perfect. Yeah, so this person on my Facebook wall had put this meme on there, and it shows what I learned in school. Like I learned how to multiply. I know what H2O stands for. And then they had put the second part, what I wish I had learned. So I took it and I scratched out a part because I thought it was really shitty towards teachers, because they're saying, okay, what school should have taught me was self-care, mental health, mindfulness, self-esteem, refraining from negative thoughts, emotional regulation, personal finance, importance of sleep. Now, I think schools can reinforce those things, but I think they have to start at home.
Yes.
And that's why I took this meme, I scratched it out, and then I added text, and I said, I wish I learned from my parents these important things that go towards mental well-being. I'd love if a teacher reinforces this with my kids, but I don't expect them to be the primary source of this. You know, I with my 17-year-old, I'm all the time. I when he's staying up late hours or whatever, I'll be passive aggressive and I'll shoot him a video where Kobe Bryant talks about the importance of sleep, how that makes him a different athlete. You know, and a lot of times you end up tuning out your parents. But if you hear somebody else say it, especially somebody famous or whatever, then it starts to resonate. So, you know, I put this on my Facebook and I got tons of comments, 25 different comments, people who were like, well, you know, parents are too busy. And then I posted, well, okay, should they have been parents?
Correct.
You can only be great, like that really one thing. Whether if you're an amazing businesswoman, well, then your parenting's going to suffer. If you're this amazing coach, well, then your probably business is going to suffer. You understand what I'm saying? So there's a give and take. You can't do everything. So I posted that on my Facebook, and it kind of ties in with here's all these things that we want to develop as part of ourselves, but it has to come from their parents. It has to start with their parents. And then if the parents don't do that, well, then hopefully you find a coach, a counselor, a teacher, a club leader. Like we get kids in our program that are really struggling. So we go around to the different clubs and we'll say, okay, well, do you want to join garden club, or do you want to go and maybe run track, or you want to do this, so that they can find that one adult that makes a huge difference in their life.
I think, John, you hit the nail on the head. I look at myself, right, and I look at why I'm so successful, and I really believe for myself, the foundation that my parents laid out for me is really why when I was out there in school or meeting that teacher, I was able to identify that it was very important for me to listen to this teacher, right?
Oh, yeah.
So I didn't have a parent at home saying, your teachers fucking suck, don't pay attention, be a fuck up, right? No, I had my parents respect the teachers, they're teaching, they could be doing something better with their time, and they have something valuable. You may not know it now, but it's going to come to you. And when I really think about that, for me personally, I think I had that foundation. My mom teaching me about never to give up. Don't take no for an answer. No's yes. If you don't understand something, ask a million fucking questions. Don't fall behind. That's exactly it. The whole thing with finances. My mom taught me finances. Right. What were some of the things down the list you put on there?
Watch, we'll go back to some of those.
Go to that one list. I just want to see. Go down, then I'm gonna give you my commentary. What was number one?
Let's see. Number one was importance of mental health.
That was my mom all day long. Don't put up with bullshit. Look at the shit your brother's gone with. Look at the bad relationship you got in. Don't get married young.
Or even when you were bullied, did she help you with guidance on that?
Oh, absolutely.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. You know what I mean? But I think
But kids that don't have that, they end up cutting themselves, maybe even commit suicide. They do other things, do other harm to other people. Do you see what I'm saying? That's why I think that's why I changed this meme into, man, parents, you got to do it first. You have to be the foundation. If teachers add to it, then that's gravy, but it shouldn't be school.
No. Or they refine it. The one thing I do think that should be taught in the aspects of the business portion. Go down the second part of the list so I don't get off. What's the second one?
Mindfulness.
That's totally at home.
Yeah.
That's not a school thing.
Yeah.
Mindfulness is totally taught at home.
Yeah. How you treat people.
Yes.
How you talk to people. So if you go to a restaurant and you're an asshole to every waiter, how do you think your kid's going to be?
Correct.
You belittle people, say at a store, somebody that's working minimum wage. What do you think that kid's going to grow up to be? Or you use racial slurs.
Yes.
Of course.
Nature, nurture. Right?
Yes. You teach your child to be that same exact way. We're not born we're not born hating people. We have to be taught to do those things.
Correct.
So that's part of mindful self-esteem is the next one on the list.
What's the other one?
There's refraining from negative thoughts.
That's a total home thing.
Yeah.
Okay, so we got another home thing.
Self-care.
That's totally home, right?
Yeah.
How do you go out into the wilderness without your rifle?
Oh yeah.
Right. So that doesn't make any sense. Yeah. So that's totally home. What's the next one?
Emotional regulation. So do you just fly off the handle, or are you always depressed? You know what I'm saying?
That's again at home. Your mom teaching you, your dad. You know what?
And then this is the one you were alluding to. Personal finance.
That's the last. Yeah. So think about this. Is personal finance the last one on the list?
No, importance of sleep is the last one.
Okay, so let's think about this. Okay, only one of those things right there makes sense for me that should be really focus in school is the personal finance piece of it. That's it.
Yeah. And I agree with you. See, and this is for 20 years has been my argument. I don't think every high school senior needs algebra 2.
No.
But they do need, I think, consumer math and personal finance.
Yes.
You know, and unfortunately, what the whole principle of that was so that every kid is college ready. Well, not every kid's going to go to college, nor would our society function if everybody went to college. You know, so there has to be a diversity, and I think kids need to have those choices or what best suits them. You know, but still, parents can start that part. You know, teaching them. Okay, you know, like one of the funniest stories ever for my middle son. You know, our rule when our kids were growing up, unless they've saved money, they, you know, like we're there at the checkout aisle, and of course the asshole stores put shit all along the aisle that kids want.
Right.
You know, so one time we were in Toys R Us and my middle son's all, Dad, I want that and I want this. And I'm like, well, do you have any money saved? He goes, no. So he starts shaking on his tooth because that was his only source of revenue. Was the tooth fairy. So he was trying to pull a tooth out because he needed some cash.
Yeah.
But that is still one of my favorite, you know, personal finance. He knew that he needed money. That was his only source of income. You know, so early on, that's one of my favorite stories there about that type of scenario. But I think parents start that. Now teachers can expand on that, but should schools only be the sole responsibility? That's why when I saw this, I was like, okay, I'm going to pass this up. I'm not going to start a controversy. I'm not going to piss people off.
But you know what? I wish I could have seen. I'm going to have to comment on this. So there was a total of how many topics? 5, right?
8 different things.
Okay. So there was 8 things. One of that. So think about that right there. What's that? 15%. So what
If
what that person's talking about is 15%. Does 15% get you anywhere in life?
Oh no,
none. So think about it. So you know it's funny. Everyone always tells me, says the fucking general breaks everything down in math, and I do. You know, because I'm just a percentage guy, right? Mm-hmm. And so when I think about that topic of what you said, literally the school should have topped you off at 15%. That is literally 15%, and you're gonna laugh your ass off at this. I think the real mathematical figure is I think it's between 14 to obviously to 8% is how much frosting goes on a cake based on the side, okay?
And I've used that analogy forever teaching high school.
So think about that, right? So we just talked about that. I'm just go down my line. My work ethic, taught by both my mom and dad. Respect, taught by both my mom and dad. Finances, taught by my mom. Mathematics. I mean, I'm gonna tell you the reason I was so good at math. My mom was she's what I had to do. I had to learn my times tables, and I had to do them for her before I could go outside. I had to write a mini book report, 2 paragraphs, before I went outside. 2 things, no matter what. I didn't do it. It was like shit. Then I got shit time, right? So when you think about all that, respect, like how I know how to keep a mean house, how I'm just so versatile, no matter what shit's thrown at me, all taught at home. So I always told people this is what I always say. When I went to school, I was so prepared that the only paradox that I had was dealing with the fucking idiot kids. Mm-hmm. But say I wouldn't have had that, and I just dealt with teachers, it would have been the most beautiful time ever.
In all reality, those people who were awful strengthened your ecosystem.
Strengthened it.
You know,
strengthened
you see what I'm saying? So an ecosystem can't thrive without a predator.
True. I like that.
Because okay, so now that animal, because the weak get chewed on, they get eaten. But then what does that do? Is it makes other species stronger because they got to learn to run faster, be tougher, be more aware of their environment because there are predators out there. You know, okay, but then eventually, you know, you become that strong person that can stand up and defend other people. It's you know, that clip I showed from American Sniper about wolves, sheepdogs, and sheep.
Yes.
You know, so you have to, and that ties into that ecosystem of, you know, once you develop those things, those predators are a crucial part of an ecosystem.
I think that whole thing, John, I'm gonna totally agree with you, and it really comes a lot from the country. But I'm gonna laugh at you here, right? I want to say this one here. Not in Silicon Valley. In Silicon Valley, all fucking nerds, no predators needed. All they are doing is coding. I think the environment that I grew up in, and I think my era, like, was probably the most dangerous era growing up in 50 years. I grew up in the gangster rap era where it was really hardcore. Even when you look at murders, most everything. Now you got a bunch of mindless guys. I got a lot of police officer friends, and they say now it's a lot of drugs and mindless stuff. Back then it was like actually like premeditated. And I'm gonna go, gang against gang. It was pretty brutal. And so I think that, like, for me, if I went to grow in the area that I did, and say I would have come into like a Menal High School, or I would have gone to a private school,
or if you grew up in a sanitized ecosystem.
Yes, sanitized. I would have totally been killing it and I still killed it. But I think what happens, this is what I'm talking about, and this is because when you're little, you don't got a choice. And this goes to this segue. So if you're in this area of bullies, why would you choose a bully spouse?
Oh yeah.
Like, you see what I'm trying to
Oh, no,
this is what I'm talking about, the
because
independence.
you're not learning from your past mistakes.
Correct.
You go from that alcoholic father to being attracted to an alcoholic mate, a partner. All you're doing is replacing one toxic person with that same toxic person because you never learned from your past mistakes, when you should have. The minute you saw those red flags, you should have been booking it the other way.
Right away.
But, and again, you look at that list, some of those people were never taught, mindfulness or that, self-care, the importance of mental health, being able to make those decisions, regulation, or even reframing negative thoughts. So that's why when I saw that list, it pissed me off that it just said school. That's why I said, fuck this.
Yeah.
I can't let this go by.
Yeah.
Because it's, number one, I take exception of it because I'm a fucking teacher. I'm not your parent.
Yes.
So that's why literally in their comment, I took that image, scratched out school, and I left it transparent so that you could still see it, because I wanted that, because those things should be reinforced in school, but that's not the primary objective of school.
No. I think the other situation, John, we say about prepping up for college. Well, if I'm an English major, I don't know what the fucking English major, but I don't think you're taking the algebra, right?
Yeah.
Are you?
Well, no, you
do
because it goes back to the Renaissance. The Renaissance man / woman back during those times, you wanted, based on a Western civilization's teaching, you wanted a person to be well-rounded. Yeah, and that's how our high school system is set up. You have to have your 4 core areas. You still have to take mathematics, science, social studies, and then language arts. Right. Your 5th core area is a foreign language, which colleges like to have, but it's not part of graduation requirements.
Right.
But you want that basis so that at least that you can someday balance your checkbook and do some simple mathematics, and more importantly, help your children.
Yes.
I see that, so yes, you may be this phenomenal person that loves literature and stuff like that, but you still have to have taken some basic math skills, some basic science skills, because the whole concept and this comes from the Renaissance, or from ancient Greece or ancient Rome, they wanted educated people to have a well-rounded education. And then from there, you specialize. So like you're an engineering genius. You specialized in just that area. And as you got away from your freshman and sophomore year, you focus mainly on just your
core
competency, your advanced studies.
Yes. And I think that's what we're talking about in your ecosystem. The same thing is what's going to be your advanced study in your ecosystem, right? Mm-hmm. Is so like if you're the dog person, don't get with someone that doesn't like dogs, right? If you're a guy who is like you, very adventurous, right? John's like, you're like, fuck it, I can still have a 25-year-old. I'm gonna go backpack in Europe, but then you get I call it a Grey Poupon chick, and she's like, oh my God, you're wearing an AC/DC shirt and you got long hair. Then why get with John? That doesn't make any sense. You see what I'm trying to say?
Oh, no doubt, yeah.
And then it goes into the
be able to.
I'm gonna fuck with you. Yeah. Didn't you ever grow up? Shit like that. Like I've been in situations with friends like that where they're like, I tell people this, like they say, what do you listen to? And I said, I love hip hop music. I don't care. I'm going down to my Bentley. I'm going down the G-Wagon. I'm going to Lambo. I don't care. I'm listening to hip hop music. I'm gonna listen to hip hop music in Laguna Beach where people are painting. It don't matter. That's what I love, right? And so I think that ultimately, but I've been with people who are like, oh, now that you're like a CEO, do you not?
They're expecting you to be more refined.
Yeah, and I sit there and I laugh my ass off. But when we all get there and I change the playlist, everyone's excited, right?
Yeah.
They're like, put the generals play this, and everyone's having fun. Because what's happening is we're allowing one dimwit to say what's cool and what's not.
Yeah.
And it's kind of like we're just following it, right? And that's what I'm talking about. When you're strong in your ecosystem, you're like, shit, dude, no, I got peaches and apples, and that's all I'm gonna stick with that. That's all I know. I'm gonna strong with that, and that's what I'm gonna, I'm gonna focus on peach cobbler and apple pie. That's it. And that's what I'm talking about, is maintaining that independence of your own ecosystem, and fuck what anyone else thinks. If you're happy with it, you're happy, right? And that's something that you kind of stand, John. I think you're really about. I was talking about Michael about this. You said, I'm about my kids, period. Everyone respect. I know that. Just the 2 times, I just already know that. So when I think about you, I'm like, John, he's about his kids. Number 1. That's what makes him happy. So you've already mentally trained us. What's your number 1? So ultimately, but imagine if there's someone comes in and their friend's like, well, I'm not about my kids. How can they really gel with you? Like, it's not going to work. And that's what I'm talking about.
Literally, I've got into relationships and I've jumped into silly ones where it was a weird scenario. A person was going to move back to California. I'm like, well, just come live with me and let's just see how it goes. And she didn't want anything to do with my kids. And I'm like, this ain't going to work. Bye-bye.
Yes.
And cut bait and freaking out.
But do you see what I'm trying to say?
Oh, no doubt.
But imagine the people that can't cut bait.
Oh, I know.
That's what I'm talking about. What's scary. So you're in the situation now. Both ecosystems ain't thriving. This one is probably thriving because they're more of a parasite, like a virus, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so now it's a fucking clusterfuck. And you're looking back, and then time is passing, and you're getting older, and you're saying, "Holy shit, I'm dealing with this twerp," or in my life, or with a situation, or I'm in this job that totally sucks, and I got demeaning bosses, or what is it? I'm at Tyson, and so like I was talking this morning, and I was thinking in my mind, like I'm driving to work, and I thought, what's the one thing that I was also taught by my parents? On the negative side, what I was taught is my mom was really about control. And I remember her telling me one time, like basically she controls the water. And I thought, does that mean if I piss her off at any moment, she can literally change my life? Well, she could take my car away. She can cut this. And so immediately I went into my mind and said, I need to break away from this, and I need to have independence so that no matter what I do, this person can like literally affect my life. So, I'm the cool kid. I got the Camaro. She takes my Camaro. It's going to affect me huge at the time.
Oh, yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So when I looked at that, I thought, I need to break this. I don't want to do this. One of my employers, I remember the boss, this guy's egomaniac, right? And one of the employees had got into some trouble, and he like lends him a loan, and he pulls it in the conference and he says, now I own him. And I was one of the top employees at that firm. What that told me there was fucking run. That one comment there was like, holy shit, this is what this guy reminds me back of my childhood. So anytime anyone's ever been like, I can control your ecosystem, I'm like, hell no, I don't want anything to do with you. I'll hit you with the the Heisman. I'm out of here. But that's what I'm talking about. But most people will become prisoners of their own ecosystem when it started off to be a very thriving ecosystem. And that's the part that sucks. And what if that chick would have been like, well, I'm not going to leave.
Yeah.
You right? And you're there.
Probably change the locks.
Yeah, but even think about that.
I know.
And now you got to deploy I'm going to get a restraining order, or how do I do this? Or she comes out with some bullshit and says, you know what, John, I don't have a place to live. He can't throw me out. I got tenancy. Yeah. And all of a sudden now you invited the vampire in, right?
Yeah, those are definitely worst case scenarios.
But do you see what I'm trying to say?
Oh, no, absolutely. I'm going to put up a comment because it's from a Facebook user, and it just means they're not part of our group, but they're listening. And I'm going to ask you this question because, and I disagree with them. But he said, public schools does not teach you to be a critical thinker. You're a product of public schools, right?
Yes.
I am too.
Yes.
Okay. Do you agree with that comment?
Not true.
Yeah.
So let me tell you something. Let me tell you what I think about public school.
But about critical thinking.
Well, I'm gonna touch on that.
Yeah.
Okay. Let's think about this. Okay. Let's just keep it fucking really simple. So you get to class, and they give you your class schedule, and you got to say, I got to get to these classes at this time, but I want to go do PE. And so like my school, it's not huge, but it's still kind of spread apart. So I like to take a shower, John. That's just who I am.
Yeah.
So I'm not going to do PE and then go to fucking, history class because I always wanted to be suave and I wanted the girls to know that I smell good. There's basic critical thinking. What am I going to have to do to take this shower, get ready, get to class, and be all in time?
Yeah.
So critical thinking starts at a very small basis. And so, like, when we're talking about public school is an environment. That's like saying, I'm going to come out into the world
It's an ecosystem.
and the world's going
itself.
to teach me critical thinking skills. That's fucking moronic.
Mhm.
When I get on the road and I drive every day, it does not mean I'm going to be a race car driver. It does not mean when I get on the highway that I'm going to be a race car driver. If I want to be a race car driver, I got to go to race driver school. And even because I go to the school doesn't mean I'm going to be, I have to pass all these tests, but I have to seek it.
Yeah.
And so this is one thing that drives me nuts is people are sitting there and saying, rain upon me. There's no such thing. It's like what I used to, I don't think you're on the podcast yet, or you might have been. I said, I am not the business Jesus Christ.
Yeah,
I cannot touch
You
you.
said that throughout.
Yeah, I cannot touch you, and all of a sudden you're going to make money. That's fucking impossible. And so, trust me, even by meeting me, and that's not going to change your life. You have to say, what have you done? And I talk about, well, this is the kind of hard work. And what are you interested in investing in my dream? No, I'm not interested in that dream. I'm too busy funding mine. But do you see what I'm trying to say?
Oh, absolutely.
So those critical skills like that, a lot of it's common sense.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of it is common sense. School shouldn't be teaching you that. Like school is preparing you, like you said, the college environment.
But I think it's a combination of the both. I think parents, if you just say, here you go away for 6.5 hours, and then your child comes home and you never make a connection with them, hey, well, we talked about this today. Well, then maybe you could give them your experience with that, or you can talk about that. I think the ecosystem of parenting in school is so interconnected, but that's just it, is you have some quote unquote parents that just strictly rely upon that school ecosystem.
Well, I'm just going to go straight on this, okay? The difference between public school and public school is one major factor. It's the parents, right? If you can afford to send your kids to private school and that's your choice,
Oh yeah.
you probably did a lot of different things than the average person, because you can't, some people that go to private school, even down to Pius, it's pretty much a mortgage. It's a small mortgage,
Oh, no.
right?
Yeah.
And so those parents are going to sit with you and ask you all these questions and say, this is what we got to do, and thinking out of the box. So that's 100% right.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, the difference between Ivy League, it's the same books that go in the Ivy League school that it goes to a state school. But at the end of the day, it's the connections you're making at the Ivy League. That's the only difference, right?
Yeah.
The ecosystem.
Which you can still get there through public schools.
Yes.
You can still do that. I mean, you look at the Fortune 500 companies, half the CEOs come from state universities.
Yes.
So that's just not a guaranteed way to it. But again, and I have, it's like you have the receipts here. I just posted my son's grade who goes to public schools. There's not an A- on there.
Right.
He's a straight A student
Right.
for the 4th semester, and I guarantee it. We can pull him on the radio right now, and he'd be able to critically think and talk about how important the Silk Road was, because he just studied for the AP exam. How important it was, and he wrote essays on it. Or he wrote about the trade in the Indian Ocean and how it connects with the oil industry. So again, if you're not helping your child, then obviously they're not critical thinkers.
Right.
So it's not just school that does that. I bring receipts. So and I know we can't, and we're not going to call you up for it anyway. But I just disagree, because I will defend schools. But again, schools aren't an ecosystem by themselves. They have to be connected to parents.
And I think, honestly, John, the ecosystem that needs to be worked on is yourself. I can sit anywhere, and I'm not going to make an excuse. I don't have to partake.
Yeah.
I can go sit in the most impoverished neighborhood, personally, and I'm not going to be hungry because I got money in my pocket. I'm going to be able to eat a burrito, whatever it is, I'm going to do it. And that's what we have to take more responsibility as an individual, is for our own bullshit. Stop talking about, well, I was born here. When I think about this, I was born in a small community, smaller than you could think about. And I said this multiple times, 40 miles one way to get a job. a fast food job, right? And there's people here
That won't
offering to
walk
get
across
paid
the street.
$13 an hour to do shit, and they can't go out there and do it because you know what? Just to screw around. I'm like, are you fucking kidding me? Now's the time to strike. If you're out there right now without a job, you have limited time to go out there and just get a job now because the opportunity is out. It's like investing in the stock market. If you ever wanted your dream job of any time in history that I've ever known, is the time right now. Like you need to strike. They're offering like literally, I'm gonna give you percentages here, 33% more than what they used to pay. So people that are paying $8 an hour, they're paying $13.50. They're offering bonuses per week if you show up to work.
But look at my graphic that I posted. It goes back to where children, or that when that person was a child, where they taught those things about personal finance. Now is a perfect opportunity for them to get into that, start saving. They're making more money they have the potential to make more money per hour. Get ahead of people so that maybe they can be management at some point and earn even more money.
Think about that.
But again, those are those 8 qualities right there that that this person wanted schools solely to teach. Well, okay, a lot of those people weren't taught that or don't have that foundation in their life. So now they're the ones that are not going to flourish.
I'm gonna tell you something. I'm gonna lay it down to you real simple. Ambition, that can't be fucking taught at school.
I agree with you.
You gotta have ambition. And I'm gonna tell you right now, when I was a little boy, I was so fucking ambitious that I wanted a Rolex because I saw it in a magazine. I didn't even know what a Rolex was, but I saw the crown and said, I want a Rolex. I went to 3rd grade. They went around the tables and said, what do you want? And I said, I want a Rolex watch. Everyone was talking about a Snoopy watch, a Walt Disney watch, something like that. And I said, I want a Rolex. And I remember the teacher talking to my mom and saying, you know, Jack's going around saying that he wants a Rolex. Where do you learn this? And she's like, I think he went to the doctor's office and he saw it in the back of a magazine and he's fixated on a Rolex, right? When I saw the car. So I think at the end of the day is how much ambition do you have? How much drive do you have to attain anything you want? That doesn't matter. If you want to eat 4 fucking Lottaburgers a day, what are you going to do to attain those 5 Lottaburgers a day?
Yeah.
You know what I'm trying to say? It never has to be
doubt.
big. Ambition cannot be taught at school. I can tell you right now that I came out the wound with a killer instinct, and it wasn't going to be subdued.
But that's what going through all this of getting to know you even better is that the more you describe your mom, the more I see all the little building blocks. It's exactly like that. You keep receipts. Your mom was freaking meticulous. All your great qualities come from your mother.
Oh, absolutely.
Come from your mother and come from the people, and then also the negative influences that were around you. They only made you stronger.
They couldn't affect me. You know what?
Yeah, but
the foundation was so strong.
But it also taught you to be resilient.
Yes,
resilient.
resilient.
You can't make a diamond without pressure.
No,
you can't. So so all those little building blocks. So if you're a parent out there and you're listening and you're saying, okay, what pieces am I adding to my child? What pieces? Okay, am I like a poker analogy? Am I gaining more chips from them? And it might be, okay, well, they're great at this subject and they're weak at this. Okay, what are you going to do to try and help them? Okay, will they just sit there and watch TV, or do they only play Xbox? Okay, are you going to maybe figure out, do they like playing sports, or do they like playing a musical instrument, or they can join some kind of club? So there's all these things that you can do to strengthen your child and give them and not necessarily define them. Because there's a lot of people that say, well, I want him to be the next Peyton Manning or the next quarterback because that's what I love. Well, you know what? Give them all these different choices and these different opportunities, So, and I did that when my kids were little. I mean, they didn't start off playing football. They started playing soccer and they did gymnastics. Then they went to Little League and they started playing that. They did track and field. They did swimming. You give them all these different choices. My older 2 sons played guitar till the 9th grade, And is it expensive? Yes. Does it cost a lot of time and effort?
Yes.
Hell yes.
Yes.
Okay. But do you want to do for them now or have to pay for them later?
It's so crazy. I have a good friend learn how to play piano, and it took her to the next levels of life, right? And so when I look at that, that's phenomenal. Look, as we were talking about this, I was thinking, if I had to sum up 3 things quick in my mind, what my mom taught me, it was 3 things major. Fight for whatever I want and fight rapidly. Like I'm talking like a savage, right? Number 2 was do not take no shit from nobody. No matter what they are, what position, if they're wrong, they're wrong. I remember my mom telling me, saying, you know what? I don't give a shit, son, if it's the priest. If the priest does something wrong to you, you fucking sock him in the face. I mean, my mom was like, she didn't give a crap, right? She taught me about all the fundamentals of life. And then the third thing, get your ass off your knees and dust them off. No matter what is thrown at you, if you're breathing and you're alive and you're strong, you're still going to win the fight. No matter what. And I share this with you on that podcast when the doctor told my mom, you got 3 weeks to live. Most people would be broken down crying. I remember her looking her right in the eye and saying, looks at my dad and says, that's okay. I raised my children. I've been married for 56 years. Ray, we got to go feed the dog. At that moment, I thought, that is true strength. This person doesn't talk about her strength. She just has always shown it. And then the fourth last thing that I learned with my mother, and this is what I try to teach this generation. She was like, walk it, don't talk it. Walk it, don't talk it. And I think that's the biggest thing that I do is I literally, what I mean by kill in silence, it's like, I'm not telling you the parade. I just get it done. And then when it's done, you're like, well, shit, he's there. But ultimately, I think, John, like for me, for this, and I want to shout out to all my teachers out there who was ever listening to that in high school, because I had a phenomenal elementary and stuff, and they gave me the preparation to get to where I'm at right now.
Yeah, but the bodybuilder, what's his name? He was
Al Shulman.
He was a teacher.
Yes.
For you, right?
Yep. Major.
I mean, your martial arts instructors, though, it's not just a teacher in a classroom. It could be somebody that you know in your neighborhood and you go cut weeds with.
Oh, absolutely.
And they
yeah.
teach, and they
Lawrence.
teach you things. Like, I mean, do you see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
There's so many broad definitions of what a teacher is. It's just not somebody in a classroom. That's why people who bash a school system, well, you're probably only depending upon that's the only ecosystem you're providing for your child. There's there's this village that you can bring your children up in, and then
but if you're so negative, nobody wants to be around you, right?
Oh no.
So then your child suffers.
Oh yeah. I've seen it now, especially during online education. They're like, oh, this sucks, and blah, blah, blah. And they poison their kids towards education. Of course the kid's gonna have a negative attitude.
But imagine this even worse, John. Imagine your parent sucks and they're so negative, and you're a great kid, but they want to stay away from you because you're so negative. So think about that.
Oh, I know. I see it happens, and there's some kids that can break that mold and not let it define them, but sadly and then they just become, they can break that mold, but then there's other kids that don't. They get so influenced from the poisons around them that it's hard for them to maintain that level of independence, and then all they do is they're codependent upon that hate or that anger that person has taught them.
So at the end of the day, it's like this. As Lil Wayne said it best, haters can't see me because they're in the nosebleed seats. And like I've always said my famous line, if I look at someone across the table and they're giving me an opinion, would I trade my life with theirs? I'm going to go about 99% of the time, I'm going to say, hell no, right? I'm sitting across Warren Buffett and I'm going to change. I want to trade financial trading. Absolutely. I'm trading with Warren Buffett, right? Hands down. Those are the things I'm talking about, but those people ain't going to spend time talking any shit. There's something I saw that was going around and says, morons create gossip and then idiots are the ones that believe it.
Oh, no doubt.
Right?
Yeah, no doubt.
And so what I'm talking about is the toxicity. If you got a moron talking all this stupidity, it doesn't have any gravity to it. It's just really hot air. It's just going to go into the atmosphere. So look, guys, topic, stay independent to your thought process. If it's being positive, can independent, make that ecosystem be on its own island of positivity. Do not allow other bullshit and build your walls. If you got to build a wall, that's okay to be closed off, because ultimately, like I said, it only takes one drop of oil to poison 5 gallons of water. So ultimately, it's not even worth it. So if you got negative family members, you got negative friends, you got negative this, get rid of them. Or you know what, hit them with the radio silence. If you don't have the aptitude to be like, go take a fucking hike like me, or I'll just get you out, then radio silence and get yourself out of the situation. Just move on. Whatever you got to do. You're in a bad household, get out of it. Screw it. Better to have your mental sanity and you're not all screwed up in your mind and you're sitting there and you're causing it. And for those people that are the fucking negative fuckers, if you're listening to this, hopefully that it touches your heart and touches your mind to don't be an anchor and start drowning the people that you say that you love. Because when you're causing all this pain and anguish to the people you love, you're really a terrorist. You're a freaking terrorist. And that could be that spouse, that could be that husband, that could be that kid. I mean, if you're that person to your anybody. So if you're that person, wake up and smell the coffee and change shit, because ultimately nobody wants to be putting up with your shit. And second of all, bring positivity. Bring positivity as a human to everyone out there. Anyone you encounter, try to lift them up some way. Say something positive. As the old saying says, if you don't got anything positive to say, keep your mouth shut. That's all right. But that's the truth. Until next week, we're off.
Harmonix Technologies, your New Mexico business IT solution. With incredible products that will fit your needs both big and small, and unmatched service, it's your vision delivered. Learn how we can help your business roar into action today. Harmonix Technologies, your New Mexico business IT solution.